Serve, love, give, purify, meditate, realize. Be good, do good, be kind, be compassionate. Adapt, adjust, accommodate, bear insult, bear injury, the highest yoga.
Wow.
And that made such an impression on me. Know that you're an energetic being.
Yeah.
I'm an energetic being. And when our energies meet, it's a game of energies.
Right.
It's not about personality.
Yes.
So if you can see and feel at this level,
Yeah.
you have a lot of fun. This is one of the questions I ask them is, what do you want? Most of them say, I don't know. So if you don't know what you want, life will take you to many places and you might not like it.
So you actually did that for your children?
Most of my journey
Yeah.
was for them.
Okay.
Because it gave me a focal point.
Okay.
Right? And, to be honest with you, Aditya,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that this, what we call spiritual life now, right, was something people had to learn. Would you like me to start
Yes,
from the beginning?
from the beginning, because I'm
Okay.
really excited. I'm sure the viewers also would love to know about it.
Hello everyone, in today's episode of Trailblazers, we are joined by the amazing Chitra Sukhu, an accomplished yogini and spiritual guru. Chitra has committed herself to a life of seva by transforming the lives of seekers throughout the world through the ancient practices of yoga, Ayurveda, Vedanta and meditation. Born in Guyana with Indian heritage, Chitra's journey into the spiritual realm began at the tender age of 3 under the guidance of her parents. After the 9/11 terror attacks, Chitra experienced a powerful calling to reduce the suffering of those around her. She addressed the pressing questions and fears affecting both children and adults by promoting meditation and inner peace as gateways to coping with life's complexities. Her initiative, New Age Kids Incorporation, and her development of the Youth Yoga Teachers Training course reflect her commitment to nurturing a balanced and self-aware younger generation.
Namaste, Chitra Ji.
Namaste.
Welcome to the Trailblazers series of Aadiverse. So today I'm so glad and happy that you agreed to do this with me, and I'm really excited to have this conversation with you.
Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Before I move on to asking the questions or have the conversation, first I would like to say that I've known you since the last 5 years or so, and each time I have met you, and also we have worked on a couple of projects, you're always calm and composed, and you maintain a state of equilibrium all the time. I have somewhere noticed that, and you also pass on that vibe to the others or the people around you. And I've also heard my friends say the same. So how is it possible that you maintain that state of calmness all the time?
It's not a conscious thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's from my upbringing. Being raised in the ashram, doing yoga and meditation since I was 4 years old daily. It's become just a way of being. So I don't try at it.
Oh, wow.
It's just the way I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How is it possible for one to come to that stage of, like you said, that upbringing matters a lot, I think. So let's talk about the upbringing then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, would you like me to start
Yes,
from the beginning?
from the beginning, because I'm
Okay.
really excited. I'm sure the viewers also would love to know about it. Yeah.
Well, my mother and father heard about the Shivananda ashram in Bahamas. I was 4 years old when they moved there. So from that age, I've been practicing meditation, yoga, daily satsang, and always the adult program. There was no program for children. So what that meant was the children were sitting in meditation like the adults. There was no Yoga Nidra. So we had to sit up, and if you were tired or falling asleep, they would sit you back up, and it was a discipline. And I had to follow that. I hated it. And, as I started, going to school and seeing other children, and I felt like they're so lucky. They get to live a normal life and have friends and do things after school. Those are things that I couldn't do. But it wasn't until I went out into the real world and left the ashram that I found that I had something that the others didn't. So this was like a wake-up call for me.
Mhm.
And then I started to really appreciate that upbringing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But whenever somebody sees someone growing up in a Gurukul environment, or even for that matter homeschooling, people will feel like they're missing out on something. But what do you think? Did you really miss out on something?
No, not at all. No. As you start to really delve deeper into the story of life, you start to see that everything's perfect as it is. And it's unraveling or developing the way it should.
Okay.
There are no mistakes. And as you start to really get to know who you are, you start to see the storylines of your life. So at this point in my life, I look back and I'm so grateful and so thankful that I got it at such a young age. Because now I see adults trying to learn about this, which it should be something you learn early so that you can live your life in a state of peace, of equilibrium.
Right.
Right? And then you start to understand what life is all about because you know who you are in every moment. Right? And nothing can sway you then.
Right.
And that's how I live.
Yeah. I think even in a Hindu tradition, according to the Bhagavad Gita or the Vedas and the principles, there is a saying, Kaumara Macharet. Kaumara means at the very young age, like 5 years, one should start understanding the concepts of spirituality. So what happens, when they grow up, they become a finer human beings.
Yes. Yeah, the different stages of life, right?
Yeah.
So I think the Indian culture, being born in India, you're lucky to be able to have that and it not be abnormal.
Yeah.
See, I grew up in America.
Yeah.
So, of course, when I went out into the world, I was dealing with other Americans. So I seemed like the one that was not normal. And again, I couldn't talk to them about yoga. This was in the 70s, right? Now it's common. Like now it's a cool thing to be a yoga teacher and to understand these concepts. But back then, they thought it was a religion, like a cult. So I just never mentioned it. And so there was a big part of me that was kept separate from my school life.
Yeah.
And this also separated me from having friends. So there was a different way about me that people could feel. They didn't know what it was, but they knew I was different. On top of the fact that I was the only Indian in the school. So in so many ways I stood out. I couldn't hide in any way. So what I learned to do was just embrace that. And I was so happy then to just stand out and not have to say anything. Like they knew who I was. I might not have known who they were, but they knew who I was. And that was a pretty nice place to be because I embraced it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you recall any incident of your childhood or, let's say younger days where, you had to deal with the situation of, having to fit in or, like, okay, this is me.
No. Trying to think of one where I never wanted to fit in.
Okay.
Like even now when I come here to India, I'm Indian.
Yes.
I look Indian until you hear me speak or the way I dress maybe. So part of me likes that contradiction, even here, because what it does is it shocks people. And in that shock, it brings them into the present moment. And then I'm there with them. Otherwise, I have to go through a song and dance. And so I benefit from this, right? In America, I don't have to do it so much because I stand out already. So I think wherever you are in life, whatever you find yourself to be, you have to embrace it.
Right.
And that's where the strength lies.
Right.
Yeah.
Good one. So a lot of people from India went to the West and propagated the yoga, the thought of yoga. So one school of thought is Shivananda.
Yes.
And you come from that parampara, I would say.
Yes, that lineage, right.
Yeah. Could you please talk about Shivananda school of yoga?
Well, the Shivananda school of yoga has 5 principles. proper rest and relaxation. I call this Yoga Nidra. They did not.
Okay.
Proper breathing or pranayama, proper exercise, asana, a sattvic diet, vegetarian diet, and positive thinking and meditation.
Okay.
So those are the principles behind the Shivananda Yoga. And they follow 4 paths of yoga, which is Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Raja Yoga.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
I could go deeper into those, but let's just leave it at that for
Yes.
now.
Yeah.
So that is the integrated path of yoga that they teach. What I remember more than anything from growing up in the Shivananda ashram was a song that Swami Shivananda, I'm sure it's his words, but Swami Vishnu Devananda, who was the founder of the Shivananda organization, in the one that I was brought up in, they would say, serve, love, give, purify, meditate, realize, be good, do good, be kind, be compassionate, adapt, adjust, accommodate, bear insult, bear injury, the highest yoga.
Wow.
And that made such an impression on me because that says everything right there, right? We're here to serve, to love others, to give. And what does this do? This purifies you, purifies the mind and the body. Then you can meditate. And then, of course, realization comes. And if you can always be good, do good in life, right? Be kind, compassionate. Bear insult, bear injury. A lot of people find that very difficult, but this is considered the highest yoga. And why is it considered the highest? It's because when you are able to purify and refine the body and mind and move into these higher states of meditation, you start to identify with the higher mind. I call this buddhi. Right?
Okay.
Buddhi has those 2 minds, the lower and the higher mind.
The gross
lower,
and the subtle.
Yes, exactly. The gross mind is what most people function through, which allows them to dissect and criticize and judge and take things apart so that they can know it, right? But know it through mind. The higher mind is what we're trying to awaken in all these practices. And when the higher mind is awakened, you're able to see what is real from the unreal, what is eternal in the transient. So, of course, when you move into these higher states of consciousness, you're able to see the storylines being played out. So if somebody insults you or injures you, you understand why it's so. Right? You understand the whole play and you can just sit there and laugh at it. Because it's such a beautiful play, right? And that's how it is. So that for me is what Shivananda Yoga is.
Yes. I think yoga is much more than, stretching your limbs.
Of course.
It's more than that. And I would like to now ask you to elaborate a little more on Yoga Nidra. Because I think that's something coined by you.
No, actually, awakened sleep Yoga Nidra, I coined it. And this again is a very westernized thing to do, right?
I know. I think you have also trademarked it.
Yes, I trademarked awakened sleep Yoga Nidra.
Okay.
Right? Mostly because I want to differentiate it from all the other ones that are being taught right now. But Yoga Nidra was really coined, that term specifically was coined by Swami Satyananda, who is part of the Shivananda lineage. But when I looked into his Yoga Nidra, it kind of left a lot out, I felt. And I know why he was doing it. It was because he was taking it to the West and it was for the Western mind. It's not that he didn't know what he was doing. He was very conscious, I'm sure, about doing that. The real purpose of Yoga Nidra is to go into that deep sleep state consciously, right? To have that presence there, to know yourself as that awareness. In that state of consciousness, if you are aware and awake, you're burning the karmic seeds or the samskaras. That's the whole idea. So the yogis used to use this for that purpose. That was their intention. So it's a very ancient practice. Right? But I think most people in the West are not using it for that. They don't want to do that. They're like, no, I'm happy to come back again and again. Right? The yogis didn't want this. They wanted out of the wheel of birth and death. So that is the purpose of Yoga Nidra. Right? You have the prarabdha karma, the karma that drives this birth. That has to be exhausted. But then as you're living out this prarabdha,
Yeah.
you're creating more karma.
Yeah.
So the yogis understood this.
Yes.
And so they said, you know what? I'm going to live this and make this the last life.
Yeah. So you need to burn.
You burn the karmic seeds.
Yeah.
And it's not an action.
Yeah.
It's your mere presence is light in that darkness.
Right.
And that itself burns the karmic seeds.
Right.
So there's nothing to be done. It's just being able to move into that highest state consciously.
What a great philosophy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we are all fortunate, at least we are able to understand these things and then practice it
Yes.
into our lives. And I'm very happy that, you are actually taking this profound knowledge and then talking about it and then, educating a lot of people.
Yes.
So how is it to, how do you, draw a parallel between being a guru, because you need to play that part.
Yes.
And at the same time, you're also a shishya, because you are constantly learning
Yes.
about things. So how do you play these two roles?
Just like that. I take them on as roles.
Okay.
I know it's not who I am,
Okay.
but whenever I play a role in life, I
Uh-huh.
make sure that I play it well.
Okay.
Right? So
Okay.
that's how I do it.
It's very easy if you approach it that way.
Yes, and I approach all of life that way. That's how I've approached everything. I don't see this as who I am. In every moment, this role is being renewed,
Yeah.
depending on who I'm interacting with.
How do you
Right.
how do you keep this consciousness all the time? Because, the moment we go to sleep, we forget. And then the moment you wake up, you probably not realize these principles. How do we practice this on a day-to-day basis?
Well, you have to first come to know who you are. That is the root and the seed of this whole creation and what you're viewing the world through
Yeah.
is who am I?
And that's
Right?
the first Veda mantra,
Yes.
Athato Brahma Jignasa.
Right. And if you don't know that,
Hmm.
everyone will tell you who you are.
Yeah. Even anybody for that matter can give
Yes.
you jnana.
Yes.
So
Right. So if you don't know who you are, you have a problem.
Yeah.
So that's the first step.
yeah,
And in the beginning, what happens when you're born, your parents tell you who you are, right?
yeah,
And then your family starts to chime in, and
Yeah.
then your religion even,
yeah,
and then society. So all of these things are conditioning you.
yeah.
And you start to forget who you were,
Right.
or who you are, I
Yeah.
should say. Because it's still there. It's
Yeah.
just now clouded with
Right.
all of these other ideas and concepts, who they expect you to be, what they'd like you to do. So if you can keep grounded in who you are, then you can listen to them
Yeah.
and have a discussion about it, laugh at it. And then, like for me, growing up in the ashram, I was told all kinds of things about who I was, specifically from my parents. You know how Indian parents are
Yes,
like?
yes.
They have very big, grand expectations.
Yeah.
And moving into the ashram and them having the realization that this is what the whole purpose of life is about. They expected all of their children, I have 3 other siblings,
Okay.
to follow this path and to be thankful for it. I was 4 years old,
Yeah.
and in the ashram, it's all about letting go of the ego. Killing the ego is the term
Right.
they used.
Right.
And I kept thinking to myself, why? I like this ego because through this ego I can perform. Why would I want to do that? So what they didn't realize, what their different stages of life. The stage I was in was really learning about who I was in relationship to the world. Now the idea is to keep who you are, keep that wisdom, that knowledge within you, and still perform in life and play in life. Have fun with it. Because I still had a long life story to be lived out.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't enjoying it, then there's a problem. And I think that's what happens with most people is they buy into the storyline that is given to them. And then they don't know who they are, and they're living that storyline, and they're unhappy, and they're like, now what do? I've invested so much of my energy and time in seeing this storyline to this point. How can I change it? But yet they're sick, and they're unhappy, and their body and their mind is telling them that this is not the place to be. And then crisis happens, right?
Right.
And that is the moment they wake up. So
Right.
this is nature showing you something. Yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that is the process most people go through in order to find this. I was lucky enough to have it early. And I say lucky only because I'm speaking from this lifetime. I know it's not luck.
Yeah.
It's
yeah,
based
yeah.
on previous lifetimes.
Right.
And my future lifetimes, if I am born again,
Yeah.
will be the same. It'll be entering at a
Yes.
very young age because it's who I am.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's really profound.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about some of the amazing things that you have done. So you have done some incredible work in the field of music, especially recording, music recordings, chants recordings, and especially for kids. So what inspired you to do that?
Yes. Well, I grew up in the Shivananda ashram, as I said before, and every day, morning and night, we'd have to sit while we chanted, right? Sit in meditation, chanting, and really immerse ourselves in that vibration. My dad is also an Ada yogi, so this is the yoga of sound.
Okay.
And what I noticed was that sitting in that space and just chanting, this is bhakti yoga, as you know, right?
Right.
You can move into such subtle states of awareness,
Yeah.
move into high states of consciousness. So for me, it's a very easy way into that high state.
Okay.
To this day, it's one of the ways that I prepare for my courses because through that music, I'm able to raise my vibration and reside in that high state of consciousness, in the higher mind, which is where I teach from, right?
Yeah.
So knowing that starting at a young age, this can just become a way of being, I wanted that for my children.
Yeah.
So that's why I did the CDs for my children.
Okay.
I also realized it's an easy way for anyone to
So you-
access that field.
So you actually did that for your children,
Yes.
for your own children.
Most of my journey
Yeah.
was for them
Okay.
because it gave me a focal point,
Okay.
right? And, to be honest with you, Aditya,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that this, what we call spiritual life now, right, was something people had to learn, right? Because I grew up in it, so immersed in it,
Yeah.
that my natural state
Yeah.
was residing in that higher mind.
Right.
It
right.
wasn't till I went out into Hollywood
Yeah.
and started to come up against what we consider the average person
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that I started to realize that they're not able to perceive energy. They are acting and reacting. I was able to perceive energy through not just seeing, but feeling and hearing it. So everything to me was energy.
Yeah.
And because of that, I had a different orientation in the world. So
Right.
for me, everything was play. I was
Yes.
always just playing with energy.
Wow.
I know that you're an energetic being.
Yeah.
I'm an energetic being. And when our energies meet,
Yeah.
it's a game of energies.
Right.
It's not about personality.
Yes.
So if you can see and feel at this level,
Yeah.
you have a lot of fun. So when I entered the game, I call everything a game
Yeah.
because I wanted to, I had the idea of wanting fame. I wanted to be famous. That was the idea.
Yeah.
Living in the ashram and hearing that ego is not a good thing and to
Yeah,
kill the
yeah,
ego
yeah,
and
yeah,
me
yeah.
thinking, no, this is
Yeah.
not what I want to do.
Yeah.
I want to actually show who I am,
Yeah.
to express myself in
Yes.
the world and let people enjoy that. It's beauty. Why not? We're all very much expressing this creativity and this beauty that resides within us. That's what it should be,
Right.
right? So for me, that was my path.
Great. Great.
And going to Hollywood and meeting the other, what people consider celebrities,
Yeah. Yeah.
and people that, they project all these ideas, almost like godlike qualities onto them. To be there and to see that they were just average human beings.
Right.
Not
right.
only just average, but little even below average because
Yeah,
they could
yeah.
not perceive
Yeah.
at that level.
Yeah.
I started to realize that I could run circles around them.
Right.
So I played for a while in that arena,
Yeah.
manipulating energies
Yeah.
and finding ways to get what I wanted.
Right.
But I also realized in that playing that there was a backlash, right? Because when you're playing with energies, it moves in one direction and then you have to experience the other side. So there's a karmic element to it.
Right. Right.
At that moment, I realized it only took me once or twice to play in that arena, and I didn't want to do it again. I was done with it. So That's when I had children.
Mm-hmm.
That was one thing I knew I wanted to do in this life. That was
Right.
one role I wanted to play, was to be
Right.
a mother.
Right.
And once I became a mom, I did that full time.
Right.
That was it for me.
Wow.
So everything from then on was geared to my kids.
Mm-hmm.
If as soon as they turned 3 or 4, which was around the time I started meditating,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted them to have the benefits of what I got from it, but I didn't want them to have to suffer through what I did.
Yeah.
So I started with guided meditation, which right now is really like Yoga Nidra, because I would have them lie down.
Yeah.
And then I started to do the music CDs as they got older.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it was really targeted to them.
Great.
And then I started to share it with others.
Yeah. So I'm sure that a lot of people must have benefited through these CDs.
I
and
hope so.
chants. Yes.
I hope so.
Great. Now let's talk about some facts, because I'm quite excited, because Hollywood is always very exciting. As a person, I want to know what exactly happened in Hollywood, and also about your marriage to this great gentleman. And
well, where to start with that one? Okay. As I mentioned before, there are storylines that are already laid out for all of us, right? At the highest level, the highest perspective I'm speaking of here. So I knew my story was going to be a very interesting one.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was going to lead to Hollywood because I didn't want to look too far into the story. Okay. When you access the higher mind, all of this is known to you if you want to know.
Right.
But there's no fun in that, right? It's important to really live it as it's happening, because then you really enjoy it, right? It's not as a witness, but the enjoyer, the actor in the scene. And that's what I wanted to do. So I let things unfold. The goal for me at that time was fame. And I didn't know how I was going to find it. There are many ways to become famous, right? There's, at that time I was thinking of modeling, because I felt I was beautiful.
No, you are beautiful. You are beautiful. Yeah.
That must be the easiest way, to stand in front of a camera and then people get to know you. So in my mind, that's how I felt. So I moved to New York, and I'm only 5'3".
Okay.
I didn't know at that time that you had to be 5'7", 5'9".
Yeah.
So I get there. I went to the agencies. I remember I showed up. I'm like, here I am.
Yeah.
What do I do now? And they're like, well, first of all, you're too short. So they kind of, gave me a reality check. And then I was like, oh, okay. So then this might not be the place for me. So I had to pivot. And I started to think, well, what other ways can I gain this feeling of being known, of fame? And then I thought of acting. And I said, well, this whole life is a play. We're acting all the time anyhow. Why not go to the place where I can do this and gain this fame, be known for it? So that's how I found myself in Hollywood.
So you didn't have any help at that time? Were you all alone in New York?
I was all alone from the moment I left the ashram, because my parents told me that if this is what I wanted to pursue, they were not going to support it.
So typical Indian parents.
And for me, it was so interesting, because I found myself laughing inside when they told me that. Because
Really?
I was kind of like, oh, okay.
You weren't depressed?
I
that's
thought it was
surprising.
funny.
Yeah.
Because to me, I was like, that's whatever.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
because I had such a trust in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the storyline was mine. And whether they helped me or not was totally fine. I was going to find my way.
Wow.
And if they decided to take the other side, there was a part of me that said, I can do this on my own.
Right.
And I'll have even more glory.
Yes.
So that's the way I felt. So no, moving to New York, I did totally on my own. Then went to Los Angeles. And again, just trying to find my way. And part of this naivete, I think, kind of served me. I didn't know it would at the time. I just, because of not knowing much about the industry, I was very curious about it. So we talked about that level of curiosity, right?
Right.
I approach everything that way.
Yeah.
And being curious allows you to ask questions
Right.
and to really be present and listen.
Right.
And the other person feels that. Again, it's that energy that's being exchanged. And when they are extending themselves that way, there's a way in. So this is how I was able to meet the right people,
Right.
get into the right networking parties,
Right.
and always be at the right place at the right time.
Right.
This is how I met my partner.
Great.
Yes.
Great.
And that again was I considered a play,
Right.
because I could see what was happening.
Yeah.
I'm usually a very direct person.
Right.
And this took a level of, in a way, manipulation, as all things kind of do in the story of life, if you're trying to achieve something.
Yeah.
So in a way, part of me takes responsibility for that, and the
Right.
other part knows that it was the way it was going to play out anyhow.
Yeah.
So after meeting him,
Yeah.
I really realized that he was an actor, director, writer, producer. So he had a level of fame.
Right.
And through him, I was able to achieve what that felt like. I
Right.
got the feeling of that. And then I realized it's nice, but it's not what I expected. I could see then behind the scenes of all of it. And it wasn't as pretty and nice as I thought it would be. So by seeing that, I was able to let go of it. But then once I became a mom, it just, everything changed for
Okay.
me. So I realized then that what was driving me, this idea of fame, was to get me to Hollywood,
Yeah.
to meet him,
Right.
because he was my life partner.
Right.
And to have the children that I had soul agreements with.
Yes.
So it was all actually pretty divinely ordered,
Yes,
is the
yes,
best way I can put it.
Yes.
And the stage of my life that I'm in right now is also divinely ordered, in the sense that we are not together anymore, you know, but yet we're great friends, because we've known each other many lifetimes, right? It's not just this lifetime.
Yeah.
And we fulfilled what we needed to fulfill,
Yeah.
and it's wonderful. It's beautiful.
Great,
So that's
great. That's
sums
awesome.
it up in a very concise manner.
No. You have really put it in a very nice way. How much of this whole philosophy or the understanding that you had, you were able to transfer it to Mr. Mario or the children right now?
You know, everything I do is based on these yogic principles, meaning that has always been my foundation. So they might not know that I'm modeling those principles, but especially children, they do whatever you do. They say whatever you say. They're mimics. They mimic you.
Yeah.
So if you see you've met my son, right?
Yes.
They have that within them.
Yeah.
And my daughter is the same way.
Yeah.
They don't know, again, this is something unusual. It's just the way of being.
Yeah.
Mario, of course,
Yeah.
was a different story, because
Yeah.
he had grown up in a totally different environment.
Yeah.
But he was also very spiritual before I met him, I have to say. Otherwise, our energies would not
Wouldn't
have
match.
matched. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is that.
Yes.
But I think what I did, at least I hope this is what he'd feel, was I was able to explain a lot of it.
Yeah.
And even though there were things qualities he had, I was able to tell him exactly how to use it.
Right.
And so I think I benefited him in a lot of ways. For example, let's give one here. We know the yamas and niyamas, right? The
Right.
yamas of
Yeah.
so this is the backbone of any spiritual endeavor,
Right.
path. So in Hollywood, those become the lines for those yamas and niyamas are very blurry.
Yeah.
I always lived strongly under the yama of satya, of truth, of honesty. I think it's the most important one for me.
Yeah.
So for me, if you ask me a question, I will answer it directly. I won't beat around the bush and tell a story about it.
Right.
But I noticed in Hollywood that was the way to do things.
Yeah,
And I guess even in business, in the corporate world, that is the way. You don't show your hand, right?
Yes, of course, of course.
Because you're wanting to gain something.
Yes.
I was never that way.
Yeah,
So just being that way, I think changed him, right? Because when you come in the presence of someone always behaving that way, it forces you to level up your game.
Yeah.
So he learned that,
Yeah.
you know. Again, in the beginning, he learned clever ways to go around it. But I think I look at him now and I'm very proud of who he is.
Great. That's really awesome. Now, coming back to, my own personal question, now that you said that, it's in being in corporate world or business world, things are very different. I'm not saying you have to be very decisive and stuff like that. But then again, business is like that. You tend to, mingle, you tend to deal with people who are always very conniving and, so what do you do at that stage? You can't follow these principles to its fullest effect. It's very, very difficult. How do you balance yourself?
Yes.
I find it very hard.
Yes.
Because day in and day I go through these situations and I know that I want to be in the righteous path always. I want to do my business very clean and clear. But then, I see that, people are definitely not in the same energy or same space of mind. So it becomes very hard. And you definitely go sulky at times, like, why is this? You start asking questions where to find answers to it.
Right. Well, I have to say that it can be done because it's the way I lived it in the Hollywood entertainment industry. I still continued being the way I was. But I looked at everything as play again, because that is just my orientation. So whenever I go into any game, I assess the situation. I assess the game. I learn the rules of the game. So in the corporate world, there's certain rules that you play by, and you understand that other people are playing by certain rules. So in that way, you know that there's some lines that can be blurred because you're playing a character, you're playing the game. But even in that, you want to make sure that whatever you do is something that you can digest, that you can get behind and not feel some sort of way about it, some sort of negativity, some sort of guilt or regret. And if you can't do that, right, then you have to really reassess the way you're playing that role. So the path of righteousness follows the yamas, right? You should do that in everything. It doesn't have to change in whatever game you play.
I've been in the business since the last 5 years, and then I do come across a lot of people day in and day out, and we exchange a different kind of vibrations. And not necessarily it is positive. Sometimes you also get influenced by a lot of things. How do you maintain that state of positive energy all the time? It is very difficult. For me, it's been. So, do you have any advice?
This is the way it should be for others, is that knowing who you are grounds you in your vibration. So when you're walking around with that feeling of, I know who I am. It's not something you're saying, obviously, but you just know it. When you enter a room, people feel that. So you're influencing other vibrations then. They're not influencing you. So it's almost like you're setting the stage and you enter that stage. And people then are reacting off of you. It's like that.
Wow.
But that happens only when you know who you are.
Yeah. And this is like you're the master of the show.
Yes. And really, that is the way it is. Every person is the master of their show. And you are my extra. And in your movie, I am the extra. But most people don't behave that way. It doesn't mean that you become
You can't artificially
tyrant or
impose
something.
that. You can't
Yes.
artificially impose
It's just
that.
a way of being.
Okay.
It's like
Okay.
that, yeah.
So how do I start? Let's say, I haven't understood any of these funda in the past.
Yeah.
Let's say I want to start now. How do I start? Where is my beginning?
You start by investigating your reality.
Mhm.
Investigating who am I. Again, it's an internal process, right? Right now, what people see and feel is this is me, and out there is a world. So then I have to navigate the world and find my way through it and hopefully find some sort of happiness and joy in it, right? It's external. The reality is the navigation that has to happen is an internal process. It is a navigation of vibration, of frequencies, of even dimensions. So the higher you move your vibration, the higher you raise your vibration and move into alternate dimensions, you're seeing from a different perspective. Others feel this. But this happens when you know who you are, right?
Right.
So start with practices like chanting is a great one,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Sound right now raises your vibration
Right.
easily.
Right.
Become acquainted with some high vibrational mantras,
Yes.
chants.
Yes.
Become so comfortable with it that it is always playing in your mind. This is what I do. I mean, when I'm alone at home, I'm always playing that kind of music. So that when I move out into the world, that is in the background all the time. What happens with most people is it's chatter. The chatter is going on.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that naturally lowers your vibration.
Yeah.
So you're walking in the world with this low vibration. So that I think is the easiest
Yeah.
way to start,
Yeah.
is become acquainted with some high vibrational sound until that becomes your recording,
Yes. Yes.
the tape recorder
Yes,
in the
yes.
back.
Yeah.
And that purifies, refines the mind, expands the mind so that when you're dealing with others, you are present.
Right. Right.
So there are other techniques, of course, but that is, I think, one of the easiest.
Yeah. No, I do firmly believe in this concept because personally I come from the Hare Krishna movement background. So the emphasis is always on the chanting so that, you're always conscious of the higher
Exactly.
self.
Right.
So I think somewhere, even for me, when I do the chanting, especially let's say, in the morning time, so that positive state of mind carries throughout the day.
Yes.
But the day I don't do that, I know that, I'm somewhere influenced.
Exactly. So it has to become a discipline, a routine
Yeah.
that you do every day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're not thinking about it too
Yeah.
much. If you start to think about things too much, the mind will start to influence you and say, no, you don't need to do that today.
Yeah.
But if it's a routine and it's just habit,
Yeah.
you will do it regardless.
Yes.
And eventually
Yes.
the mind gets on board. It realizes, I cannot stop this. It's going to happen. So let me support it.
Yeah.
So make a discipline. Asana, right? Allows you to release the blocks in the nadis, right? So that the prana, which is your intelligence, is flowing through the body.
Yeah.
Mantras, I guess, is also something you do at the Hare Krishna, right? Japa.
Right.
This is, again, when I'm walking and I'm alone, I'm not talking to others, every step is a mantra,
Right.
right? Like this.
Right.
This is keeping you in a very high vibration.
Yeah.
And people will perceive this. Yeah.
Wonderfully said. Yeah. This is going to be a very interesting question. You are an avid traveler because whenever I want to talk to you, you are in some part of the world. So how do you manage to travel all alone? Because I've seen you, it's like, you've been staying in Bangalore or India since how long? Like
It's been a month now.
It's been a month now.
It'll be a month and a half when I leave. Yeah.
Yeah. So I cannot think of myself, going for a one-day tour or a vacation all by myself. It is very, very hard. But then what inspires you to travel apart from work itself? Like, you do travel to teach and everything. But then otherwise, you also spend a lot of time in just travel and observing.
I like to learn about other mind structures. That's the way I call it. because every culture is conditioned in such a way that is so interesting to me. It's fascinating. I like to learn about the history of the people, their traditions, their cultures, and why they do what they do. This allows me to continue to be interested in life.
Wow.
Right? Because otherwise, I wouldn't be.
Okay.
Yeah. And it keeps me rooted and grounded because I still have much more work to do.
Okay. Great.
I do it alone because when I'm alone, I'm sitting in that space of the higher mind. And when I put my attention on something, I learn very quickly about the story of it. It's like that.
Wow.
So it brings a lot of joy
Yeah.
as the truth moves through me. And if I'm with someone else, I'm entertaining them, they're entertaining me, I'm expending a lot of energy. And it's nice for some time, but I like being alone because there's a lot that's playing in me that is fascinating, and it makes me really interested and curious about things.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Tell me the number of countries that you have visited. Do you have a number?
I don't have a number, but gosh, a lot. And there's money that I go back to multiple times. India now has become one of the places I go to at least once a year now.
Right.
So, but no, I've a lot of places in Europe.
Yeah.
I've traveled extensively in America.
Yeah.
In South America, in Asia.
Yeah.
A lot of places in Asia. Yeah. So again, just different kinds of people, different
Yeah.
ways that they live. It's so
Yeah.
interesting to
Yeah.
me. Yeah.
Leaving aside India and the US,
Okay.
tell me any of the cultures that has actually fascinated you, and also you have kind of, taken, got influenced deeply with the culture. Is there any?
I don't think there's any other culture that has influenced me deeply other than India.
Wow.
Other cultures are interesting to me, and it makes me understand why they behave the way they do. But it's more of a study then.
Wow.
It's
Okay.
not an influence.
Mhm.
And again, my DNA, I say my bones
Yeah.
are that of India.
Right.
Even though I was raised in America, I'm American in a lot of ways, of
Yeah.
course, because that's my orientation. That's how I grew up. But growing up in the ashram and that way of life was very Indian to me. And Indian parents.
Right.
So it feels familiar to me. Yeah. And even when I come to India sometimes, I think I told you this,
Yeah.
I look at the Indian mind as heavily spiritual, or at least my expectation is that it should be so.
Yeah.
So when I do see people very much into the corporate
Religious. Okay.
world
Okay.
or wanting a lot lot of West has,
Yes.
I'm really surprised by it.
Yeah.
And not that it's not a good thing, it is. But I think you should marry the two,
Yeah.
like I did in Hollywood.
Yeah.
I still kept who I was
Yeah.
and brought that to the game I was playing.
Right.
So I think the Indian mind, the Indian person does have that as its foundation, but make sure that you live that in your whatever game you decide to play. I think that's important.
Great.
Yeah.
I want you to elaborate on this particular aspect. There's a difference between, like, as you said, Indians are trying to, want to become successful in many ways, or, the way the other countries, like the Western countries, are flourishing, right? We're always looking at the West. What is the difference between modernization and Westernization? From my point of view, I feel we Indians, there's nothing wrong in modernization, but Westernization is not something that we want to do. But then, people are lacking the understanding between these two.
It is the nature of the mind in general to want to know what it doesn't know.
Okay.
So what it ends up doing is it sees the grass is greener over there.
Right.
You know, you look at the Western mind and they're like, no, there's something in spirituality now. So you see them now stretching towards the east,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And the Eastern mind stretching towards the west.
Right.
So in and of itself, it's a very beautiful thing
Mm.
because then they can meet,
Mm.
right? And have a harmony there. As long as you keep your roots, this is what I'm talking about, not to lose yourself in the other. Because the beauty of you is in your story of life, in the backstory, which is your conditioning, where you're born. This is the backstory, is what I call it.
The
right?
originality.
Meaning the backstory is where you, your culture, your tradition, this
Where
is
you
your
come
backstory,
from.
right?
Yeah.
So ground yourself in that and then still learn about the other. And you can still live out that story, but know who you are. When I say know who you are, it's not just your essential nature I'm talking about, but know what makes you you in this life and what is beautiful about you in the here and now, in this character that you're playing. If you don't see the beauty of that, you're not going to be able to influence in a positive way, if that makes any sense. If you don't know who you are, you're ashamed of who you are, you're ashamed of your backstory. What in America we have that a lot with the African Americans because of slavery and all of those things. There's a shame that's there. What they need to do is to go back to their roots and find out who they are and then find the beauty in that. And then when they show up in the world and play whatever game they're playing, that's what people see. That's what people feel. And they will treat them differently.
Right.
So it's an internal process that they're bringing to whatever they do.
Right.
That's just an example.
Yes,
right?
I got it.
But in the Indian mind, I do see a lot of them becoming westernized, and it's different from modernization. It's wanting to be more like that, more what they see in Hollywood, maybe, right? Because the movies, all of those things influence what you'd like your life to be like. So it's okay to live out that image and that picture, but again, as I say, know who you are.
Yeah, exactly.
And find the beauty in that.
Yes.
And then it becomes something else.
Right. Beautifully put.
Yeah.
So I hear a lot of news about people in their 30s, 40s, especially in the corporate life or even entrepreneurs going through a lot of health issues in terms of stroke or heart attacks and even sometimes fatal. I think it's to do with a lot of pressure. So, but but we don't have much time to offer to yoga and these things. How do you find that balance?
With every game that you play, you have to know the rules, right? A lot of times the games that people move into and where they're finding stress and problems is mostly because they don't really necessarily want that game or they don't fully understand the game. They might not know exactly what they want in that game. So they find themselves being played, I guess is the best way to put it. Whenever I want to enter a game, I learn all the rules. And as with every game, you go in to win, right? You don't ever enter a game thinking, okay, I'm going to lose here. I'm going to see how it's going to go. You only enter the game if you think you're going to win. Right? So I think a lot of times people are entering games that they have no business entering. Right? It might be because your parents want you to enter that game or someone else is telling you this is the cool game and it's not where your nature supports. So I think that's a very good self-assessment that needs to be taken first. If you enter a game that you want to be in, for me it was the acting and it's something that I wanted, right? Then I'm going to have a passion for it. I'm going to have the energy for it. If you don't have that energy, it's because you don't want to be there. So it really isn't that difficult to think. It's very simple, but most people don't want the simple answer. So what I say is figure out what it is you really want to do and move forward with that.
Right.
That's the best way I can put it. Otherwise, you're going to have to find a reason to be there.
Right.
Find the motivation.
Right.
And it has to be one that you can get excited about. If you can't, I say get out of it. Find a new way. It's not too late
Yeah.
to learn a new game.
Right.
Because
Right.
inside of you, there is something that wants to come out.
Right.
So it's not starting from ground zero. So find that, and you'll find the energy to do it.
Right. Right.
And you'll find yourself inspired and creative and bursting with this energy.
Yeah.
And that energy is healing. So if you find yourself in a crisis mode where you come up against a doctor telling you you need to do something, or you're going to have a heart attack, or you're going to get some sort of disease like cancer, something's going to happen if you don't make a change, take note of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. It's important.
Yeah.
Moving to another concept, being in the present moment. It's as much as it sounds very, very simple, but it is so difficult to implement that.
Right.
And it's why is it so difficult to assimilate this simple concept?
Right. Well, what does being in the present moment mean, first of all, right? It means presence, right?
Yeah.
And you're always in the present moment. It is this personality, or this persona in reality, I call it, this idea of who you are that is not. Okay? And you are so enamored by the games of this you that you're distracted.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is what is happening.
Yeah.
Right? You are distracted by the illusion,
Right.
by unreality.
Right.
Being present just means to let go of all that
Yeah.
and just sit with what is.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Right. I know.
It's like at this moment, I'm sitting here with you.
Yeah.
There's nowhere else I need to be.
Yeah.
And that's how it is.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And what you'll find is when you're in the presence of one that is present, you are brought into the present moment.
Yes.
Right? You can't be out of it.
Yeah. But I need to practice this.
It's not really something to practice.
So how do I get there?
You
Because if I know that, like, for example, I know that I'm distracted
yeah.
all the time. At least I've come to that stage to understand, yes, I am distracted.
Right.
I'm not there in the present moment. But I want to get there somehow.
Right. So you have to really, again, investigate yourself and find out why is this moment, what is this moment lacking? Because whatever it's lacking, that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So is this moment lacking anything? So these, I'm giving the process that you go through yourself. So I ask, is this moment lacking anything? No. I'm breathing. I'm here. I'm in the presence of this person. I'm enjoying this. All of these things have to start coming up in you.
Yeah.
These are the truths.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And when you start to sit in that, you relax.
Right.
Everywhere you go, you have to feel that.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
If you have to also think about wherever you are, and you're thinking of the future. When you realize you get to that future self or that future place, you're going to be doing that again. So you're always out of sync with time. And this is what happens with most people. This is not living at all, right? This is, I call death in disguise. It's not truly being aware of life. And when you put yourself outside of life, you are what I call what's the word for it? Like a zombie, right?
Yeah.
And that's actually what I've seen mostly when I walk out into the world, are zombies. And now with their phones, it even looks more like that.
Yeah.
But it really is like that.
Yeah.
You don't see people living.
Right.
And then you come to the end of your life and you're like, did I ever live?
Yeah.
So it takes one moment to just realize this. That's how you do it. It's just a realization. And then you say, from now on, again, if you want to call it a practice, you can say, I'm practicing it.
Right.
I'm going to be right here, right now, and just forget everything else. It'll take care of itself, because life takes care of itself.
Yeah.
Right? And you are actually an intricate part of life. You are not separate from it.
Right.
And when you know that experientially, not as a concept, you relax. You trust that everything will work out the way it's supposed to. So life is taking care of itself. I'm part of it. So I'm taken care of, and it's good. All is good. And so where I am is where I'm supposed to be.
Right.
That gives you a sense of,
Right.
I can relax.
Right.
Yeah.
Great.
And it actually brings up another point of this traveling that I do.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is to drop myself in new situations and really just figure things out. I don't plan ahead. Like, I had no idea what this month and a half was going to do for me. I just planned the flight in, the hotel for the first 3 nights because I get really jet lagged.
Yes.
But after that, I had no idea.
Yeah.
And I started to then move out into the world, be very present with it, see the people I meet, see the opportunities that come into my sphere, decide if I want to do it, and then start to move like that. So it's like the threads of life are starting to weave a story, and I'm part of that story. And that's how I do it. I call it flow.
Okay.
So that is something I do because I want to be present.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. For our viewers, if we have to break down this particular philosophy, whatever we spoke about, to be present in the moment, if they have to start with some 3 simple things or 5, pick a number, and if you say, okay, one is investigating yourself, like that, you can take a moment, maybe we can. Okay, I need to do 1, 2, 3, and then that's somewhere I can start off.
It's funny, you can't really practice being present because in the practicing, you're out of the moment. This is the thing about it. It is just something, like I said, you are already present. It's just you have to get rid of all that is distracting you from knowing that.
That's it.
It is that simple. And that's, but if you say, okay, I'm going to practice it, you're out of sync.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why it's when you're asking me for techniques to do that, the technique itself will take you out of the moment. Okay? Right. You are already everything you need to be. You are perfect as you are.
Yeah.
Right? Come to know that and you will relax and allow life to flow. It's like that.
Wonderful. I'm really blown. Now, can you name any 5 of your favorite books? Not necessarily to do with yoga, but then...
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. I get that a lot. I am not a scholar by any means, especially on the subject of yoga and meditation, mostly because I want that wisdom to flow through me. And because that way it becomes my own wisdom. When I read others' take commentaries on the ancient scriptures, I'm reading what flowed through them. And I will do that sometimes, especially with someone like Nisargadatta Maharaj. He wrote the book called I Am That. And that is, I would highly recommend that book. Because what's coming through him is truth just flowing. And when I read it, it's evident. And when truth flows like that and you read it, you are also raising yourself to that level where that truth was being told. There are not many books like that.
Okay.
But that is one. Nisargadatta Maharaj, I Am That. The Yoga Vishishta. I don't have an author there, but I think it's an ancient text. There's many commentaries on that. Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. If you're in the yoga community, you have to read it only because it's the story of this time.
Yes.
And if you're in the spiritual path, it gives you a way to converse with others and have a foundation, right?
It's very relevant even to this day.
And what I would recommend with that is read just the sutra. Don't read others' commentary. Let the higher self inform you what the truth is. How many books is that? Is that 3?
It's a 3.
Yeah. 3, okay.
It's a 3.
any of the Upanishads. For me, the Mandukya Upanishad is my favorite.
Can you name any of the verse from Mandukya or any of the phrase that you have been fascinated? Well, I wanted to ask you this question.
I don't know one from that one specifically, but from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, that one, you are what your deep driving desire is. As your desire is, so is your will. As your will is, so is your deed. And as your deed is, so is your destiny. That to me is like everything.
Wow.
Yes.
We have such profound knowledge to take.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And just hearing it, just letting that sit, you sit in that, and that raises you to such heights of ecstasy.
Yes. It elevates your consciousness to another realm. So
right.
Higher realm.
Right. So there's another way to raise your vibration. Yeah. It's not just music, but the what you read. The sutras can do that. Okay, I'll give you another author that is actually living.
Okay.
This is one that I found in the spiritual world of America and the Western world to be controversial, but I love him.
Okay.
Deepak Chopra.
Oh, wow. Okay.
People have a lot of things to say about him.
Yeah.
But I love the way he approaches things. He has a scientific mind, but he's also very immersed in the spiritual. So he speaks to many people on many levels.
Right.
So I like that.
Right.
He knows what he's talking about.
Great.
Yeah. So if you want to talk about someone that is living, I would endorse any of his books.
Definitely. Yes. No, I should at least, pick up at least 2 books and then I should start. Yeah.
Yeah. He makes a lot of the ancient wisdom accessible to the modern mind.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And my last question would be, we have, there is a feeling of this, fear of missing out in every sphere of life. Whether it is, a college-going student, or it could be in the business world, or it could be the corporate life. So how do one tackle this issue?
Well, again, you start first by figuring out what is this imagining that is out there that you feel you need to become a part of, right? Again, it's an investigation that has to happen. A lot of this fear of missing out happens because you are not happy where you are, right? Again, knowing who you are. So you create a reality, right? So it's unreality. It's an illusion that you're trying to move into because I am just not settled with who I am. So it comes back to, again, knowing who you are.
Right.
And then knowing who you are, you see the situation out there as maybe interesting. So then you're like, okay, it's not then a fear of missing out anymore, but it's just like, okay, it's there. And I think I can enjoy it. So then you enjoy it. It's like that. But what you'll find also is that when people create this whole idea of what they want to experience, kind of like I did when I wanted to go into the entertainment industry, once I got there, I started to really look around it and say, is this what I expected? Because what you'll find is your expectation is always greater than the reality.
Right.
So this is the investigation that has to happen.
Right.
Of course, this naturally happens as you mature, as you age, you get to that, right? So a young person can get there earlier if they wanted to through investigation. So wherever they think they're supposed to be, go there.
Right.
But go there with awareness.
Right.
And then really sit there and say, okay, is this what I thought it would be? More than likely it's not, right? And that in its sense will allow that feeling to go. Okay?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's actually all very simple,
Very
isn't
simple.
it?
Yeah, we are complicating the whole thing
We
in our minds.
complicate it so much. This is so interesting because I told you when I left the ashram, and when we talk about people not knowing who they are and wanting, again, these ideas of fear of missing out, all this, I saw them running here, running there, and I'm like, well, what is it that you're actually doing? Why? Why are you doing? They couldn't tell me why. They just know that there's something that's driving them. So that's another thing I want to point out. know what you want.
Mm.
Okay. I ask a lot of people in my courses, it's one of the questions I ask them is, what do you want? Most of them say, I don't know.
Mm. Mm.
So if you don't know what you want, life will take you to many places and you might not like it. So knowing what you want awakens buddhi, the higher mind, because that's your will. Okay? Once you know what you want, you start on that path to get it. The will keep you on your path. Eventually that will opens up to become that wisdom.
Right.
Right? So it's like the opening of your higher self. It's how you activate it and awaken it. It's a process when you're younger, right? So once that mind is awakened, you can then start on the spiritual practices.
Right.
Because really that is needed.
Right. Right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Otherwise you don't see any reason to do it.
Yeah.
It's like, why? Someone else is telling you should, but you don't feel it yet.
Yeah.
That's the maturity that needs to happen.
Lastly, I want you to talk about the programs that you offer for our viewers' benefit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm teaching multiple courses, really depending on the school of yoga and what their students want. I adapt the courses to suit that.
Okay.
But my signature course, the course I love to teach, is the Awakened Sleep Yoga Nidra. Mostly because it really is a complete program from here to enlightenment.
Okay.
It sounds something like a very simple thing, like you just learn about Yoga Nidra, but no, it's about life.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my major program. But other than that, I teach whatever school of yoga. If they say, for example, I have a school in Germany who wants me to come back year after year. So I get the same students year after year. So I have to keep changing the program to keep them interested.
Yeah.
So I'm teaching siddhis, understanding what that is.
Yeah.
Talking about tantric techniques. So we go through the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. There's 112 techniques. I choose a few of them and we work on some of those. Awakening the inner guru, which is specifically the higher self.
Yeah. Yeah.
So whatever. Ayurveda. I teach in Ayurveda
right.
for daily life. All of what I teach is based on Vedanta,
Right.
yogic philosophies, Tantra, Ayurveda, Yoga Nidra.
Yes.
All of these, this is the foundation for anything that I teach.
Yeah.
And Buddhist philosophies, all of the Eastern philosophies
Yes.
would fall under this.
You don't necessarily stick to one school of thought.
No,
Why?
I don't.
I'm a little curious there.
Because I feel a lot of the schools of thought have become very rigid and they don't bleed into others. Whereas life is very flexible, it's very fluid, and the truth is living. It is not stuck. I find that the scriptures are very beautiful, but they have to be interpreted for this day and age. Not that it changes. The eternal truths are always the same.
Yeah.
But how you speak to the audience, how you speak to the student has to change because their mind structure has changed.
Right.
So that's why. So I will cross over to any path, even if it's Christianity. Jesus had a lot of truths in his... Actually, everything he said, there was truths in it.
Yeah.
But you have to learn understand, I should say, what he was saying.
Right.
And I find that every religion, every school of thought that is reaching for the highest has these. So I don't want to just stick with one.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Absolutely. With this, we come to the end of our podcast, but then I'm sure that the subject matter that we spoke about will linger not just in my minds but also the viewers. And I'm really grateful that we did this podcast, and I'm really looking forward to again meet you and then talk to you more about different topics, and I'm sure that there is so much to talk. Thank you so much for doing this with me.
Thank you so much for having me. I truly enjoyed this experience. This is actually my first podcast. I was very curious to see how this would turn out, and I'm really grateful. that we're here. And I love comments. So if there anyone that has a question or comment for me, please do that.
Yeah.
And I will be there to answer for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll also leave the Instagram handle and also other social media platform handles of Chitra Ji, and please do follow.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.